When I was trying to write the name down for our script and like to talk about it in our Slack, I just had like it was I write with the U. Like I write. I grew up in Canada. I write like that, but
Believe
I'm so
me, I know.
To... Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is episode 61. I'm Anita Sarkeesian, and I'm joined, as always, by my fellow bedchamber maids, Carolyn Pettit.
Hello.
And Ebony Adams.
What's up?
This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love. Or alternatively, we're the feminist killjoys coming for your media, depending on your perspective. Today we're going to be talking about The Favorite. And after that, we'll finish the show by each sharing a little something in What's Your FREQ-Out? Now on with the show. Y'all, I had the most salty-ass bacon this morning, and I feel like I can't talk.
Like, did your tongue still feel like all salty and stuff?
It's not pleasant, man.
No.
Over-salting is just don't do it.
Yeah.
You make meat for a living. Don't you know how to fucking salt that shit?
Where did you get this salt?
A package of bacon from my local market?
Yeah, not really what I'm asking.
I mean, it's from an organic market it wasn't butcher bacon, but it was from like an organic distributor that does like sugar-free paleo bacon stuff, whatever. I think it was just a bad batch and I'm very disappointed. And then I was eating it cold, which makes it even more salty. Y'all who know food know what I'm talking about here. It was just
all of your decisions today have been poor ones.
I worked out this morning, so give me that at least.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Ebony also had a delightfully terrible breakfast as well.
Listen, I made this decision, so I'm sticking by it. You know, whatever. It's just some fucked up oatmeal. Oatmeal can be so good. I do love oatmeal, but I didn't hook it up right.
I think we all need to be more like Carolyn and have a lot more cereal in our lives.
Yeah. It's just so simple. You know, you pour it into the bowl, perfect. You pour the milk. It's hard to screw up, you know? It's hard to screw it up. I think I nailed it this morning.
Everyone be more like Carolyn.
Yeah, we all need to be more like Carolyn, really.
Sure,
apparently, our listeners want you on our Star Trek podcast as well. They just don't want no Carolyn, basically.
It was so sweet, too, because it was like, hey, so I guess this is what a podcast is like when Carolyn's not on. And it was the sweetest kind of shade, you know? And it was like, yeah, we get it, okay? We get it. Carolyn is the one who keeps us on the rails.
I mean, I thought it also could have been interpreted as, because it was like, I like that it gives me insight into what feminist frequency is like.
That's not what that was.
So it sort of sounds like, gosh, imagine FFR if only Carolyn wasn't on it. It would be like this.
Yeah, it was to me. It read very much like a Southern woman's "bless your heart."
Right.
You're like, oh, this is what it would be like with Cal Carolyn. Bless your hearts.
So that said, let's get all of the Carolyn.
Yeah.
Through our weekly entertainment news. Carol, you better have something good for us, because I already have a handful of shitty things we could talk about.
Okay, well, I did remember that last week we came to that decision of maybe two bad things, one good thing. So I have, we'll see how it goes.
Let's do the shit sandwich. It's great, except in reverse.
Well, no, I want to save the good for the last.
Oh,
so it's like an open-faced sandwich.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Except upside down.
Yeah, okay.
So first of all... we can all continue having our favorite pop culture conversation of the past several years, as it has been announced that Jason Reitman, the son of Ghostbusters director Ivan Reitman, is going to be directing a new Ghostbusters movie set in the original universe. Details about the film are scant at this point. Presumably, original cast members like Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson may make cameos or be supporting characters. My guess is that it will see a sort of passing of the torch to like a new generation of Ghostbusters. But will those Ghostbusters be all dudes? Will there be the one token, Smurfette woman among them? Will it be some kind of, ensemble with women and men, who knows?
On a scale from 1 to 10, how excited are you for this?
Cute. Fuck this. I can tell you, I guarantee you the crop of Ghostbusters we're going to get in this, like Rip Van Winkle bullshit, there's going to be a black man in it to give kind of like, to be the comic relief in it. A certain kind of comic relief, but then there'll be one woman and she'll be, like badass, but not as badass as the men in it. And she will ultimately be the romantic foil for the main Ghostbuster. You know, like I guarantee that's what's going to happen.
All right. Like that certainly would be, you know, very, very formulaic, and it certainly could come to pass. I mean, the original Ghostbusters film is a comedy, so I don't think that I love Ernie Hudson in that movie. Like Winston might be my favorite Ghostbuster, and I don't think that I wouldn't call him comic relief because I think they're all funny in different ways. But
no, I don't think that's what's going on in the original Ghostbusters. I'm saying for this new one, I think that there's a kind of, you know, formula for inclusion of people of color, and by and large, it's to bring like the sort of, you know, street comedy, like urban comedy.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
And it definitely can't be a woman of color because that would be going too far.
No, they're going to try and spread it out. So there'll be a black dude and there'll be a woman, and she'll be super hot, and there'll be like, you know, this like tired ass banter between her and the kind of alpha Ghostbuster, and ultimately the story is still going to mostly be about like the white folks. And they're gonna wind up in bed together. I'm calling this right now.
All right.
When this thing hits screens, if I turn out to be right, I want everyone to send me a penny.
Okay.
Everyone in the world?
Yeah, that's a lot of pennies.
That is a lot of pennies, man.
All right. Well, we'll see. You know, we'll see how that the not only the film but the conversation around the film unfolds in the months and probably 1.5 to 2 years to come. So brace yourselves for that.
I'm so excited.
In other news, let's see. Chris Pratt and Katherine Schwarzenegger are engaged.
Please tell me that's not the good news.
No, it's not the good news.
Damn, Carol.
Pratt's announcement post on Instagram said, and I quote, "Sweet Katherine, so happy you said yes. I'm thrilled to be marrying you. Proud to live boldly in faith with you. Here we go." And also, you know,
does that mean they haven't had sex?
Oh, I think they probably have. I don't think
I'm just saying.
I don't think these hip, young, you know, churches that celebrities go to take that part very seriously, but they sure do take they sure do take the, like, no gays or trans people part seriously. Queer Tea reports that Pratt, quote, attends an anti-gay church with a history of child molestation and ex-gay therapy.
Yikes.
In 2008, it was revealed that Hillsong Church, that's the name of the church that he goes to, referred many of its gay members into ex-gay conversion therapy. The church has since said it no longer encourages ex-gay therapy, but a former gay congregant still warns gay people that Hillsong will never accept them.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, wow. I didn't mean to. Sorry. Fuck this shit, y'all. Like, it is 2019.
I know.
This is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Isn't Hillsong Justin Bieber's church, too?
It is also Justin Bieber's church, yes.
Oh, boy.
Canada needs to take Justin Bieber back. I don't ever want to hear about him again.
Real quickly, since we kind of talked about this last week, but so by the time this airs, we're recording this on Monday. On Tuesday, the Oscar nominations, I believe, will be announced. So by the time this airs on Wednesday, we will all know that Green Book has been nominated for Best Picture, as it surely will be. It did win Best Picture this weekend at the Producers Guild Awards. So another kind of nail in the Best Picture coffin for Green Book there. It's looking pretty, it's looking quite likely that it will win Best Picture.
I hate everything.
Yeah, pretty awful. All right, so, let's see some good things. Images of Keanu Reeves with Dolly Parton made the rounds on the internet.
That was a great thing.
Blessing everyone's Twitter timeline.
Yes.
So happy.
Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio made his debut in the Spider-Man Far From Home
Whatever
trailer.
you're about to say, Anita, don't say it.
Fine.
Anita, I'm sure, is super excited about this.
I didn't know people loved him so much.
I'm one of those people, so don't even fix your lips to start. Right. Okay.
I'll just be here quietly.
Yeah, hit me up on WhatsApp later so I can screenshot it and then call you out.
Also, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego is now on Netflix. Apparently it's pretty good. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
That's why people are talking about it.
Yeah. because it's out.
Those are all good things.
So I guess I shouldn't bring up my one bad news thing this week. I'll just keep that to myself.
We got time. We
have time for whatever's inevitably going to be a shit garnish to our open face pop culture sandwich?
Do you have another good thing for us?
No, I'm out of good things.
The Erykah Badu stuff, man. Really quick, because we need to wrap this up. Is she played a show in Chicago, and she said that she, like, her prayers are with R. Kelly and hope he gets better, and that, like, you know, what are we gonna do if, like, the people he abuses become abusers? Are we just gonna attack everybody? Like, she went off on stage kind of defending this guy, and everybody was like, well, no, you need to see what she actually said. So I watched the damn video. Man, fuck her. She's canceled. Like, she has said so much stupid shit over the years, and we all kind of keep forgiving her culturally, right? Like, who cares what any individual thinks of this? But that was like, why are you even saying anything, and how dare you? So to me, I'm like, how are your prayers not with the fucking black girls that are being abused and tortured? Like, how dare you?
You know what's gross about it is that Erykah has been getting a pass because of this, like, Earthchild bullshit, this, like, you know, iconoclast, eccentric, whatever, but she's been saying mad problematic stuff for years.
Yes.
Like, she should have been gathered up. And to be honest, many folks, especially black women, have been gathering her up because she has consistently come out with these lukewarm ass takes about how, you know, like, girls need to, you know, girls and young women, they aren't responsible for predation, but really maybe they should pay attention to how they present themselves and how it's natural for men and boys to be sexually attracted to them. This is human nature, whatever. And it's like, this could not be a more unformed bullshit ask worldview. So, yep, it's time to call Tyrone and tell me to pick you up, Erykah, because we need you to leave the party.
Maybe you just need to pray for Tyrone.
Sure.
Oh, boy. All right. So sorry to ruin it. Next week I will not ruin our happy, delightful news at the end there, but that shit pissed me off. Hey, y'all, did you know that we can keep bringing Feminist Frequency Radio to the airwaves because of you? It's true. If you are enjoying our show, please consider joining our podcast community at d.rip/femfreak. It's where you'll get access to some fun perks and bonus episodes, and really, at the end of the day, you're going to help us keep bringing feminist media criticism to the airwaves. So please head on over to d.rip/femfreak. All right. Moving on to our main segment for today, the favorite with a U, I might add. Because
I was so frustrated when I went to the movie theater yesterday. I went to this theater, you know, the California here in Berkeley, got a beautiful marquee, and seeing that U in the middle of that word, I was like, no, we don't spell it that way here.
When I was trying to write the name down for our script and, like, to talk about it in our Slack, I just had, like... It was, I write with the U. Like, I grew up in Canada. I write like that, but
Believe me, I know.
I'm so conditioned to, like, not do it that I was like, wait, is it? Isn't it? I don't know. My head exploded. Anyways, The Favorite stars the incredible Olivia Colman, Emma Stone, and Rachel Weisz in 18th century England. While there's a war waging between England and France, another war is waging inside of the royal house when Lady Sarah and her new servant Abigail use emotionally cruel and manipulative tactics against one another to win the primary affection of a very unhinged and physically unwell queen. Y'all, how I wrote this one, just saying... And I did the war in the house and the outside. I was very proud of myself last night.
It's quite good. It's quite good.
Thank you.
We're going to let you do more of these, Anita.
No. I just was like, I feel like this is in competition with Carolyn's wonderful intro shreds.
We're all on the same team here.
Anyways, I was
Team Carolyn. Team Carolyn is the best.
Well, that is true. Anita and I saw this film together. with a friend, and it was delightful seeing a movie with her. Although, because, we sat in a row and we weren't sitting exactly next to each other, I wasn't able to look over and share key moments of this film, which I really, really needed to be able to look someone in the face and be like, oh, what the fuck
I kept
just
looking
happened?
over at a mutual friend and was like, you're laughing, right? Like,
Yeah.
so the theater we were in had like 4 other people in it maybe, and the 3 of us that were there together were laughing our asses off, like audibly and loudly, and no one else was making a noise. And I had to keep looking over and being like, this is funny, right? Like, I'm not like,
Yeah, I think there's this, this expectation among many people when they watch, what they assume is going to be like period drama equals serious drama.
right.
Or period piece rather equals serious drama. And elevated. And this film, like yes, it is funny. You are supposed to laugh out loud. That dance scene, like there's no other way you can react to that than by losing your shit in the theater. I lost my mind. I wanted to roll down the aisles.
At the point when the dance scene showed up, I was like, oh my God, this movie needs to be called like White People Are Weird. Like the weird shit that white people do, right? Like, because at that point there'd been so many instances of like, what the fuck is wrong with everybody?
I love that dance scene so much because it reminded me of like those like a 90s Madonna video. That kind of like pageantry, and especially because of the people of color in the shot, like it just felt very much like a set piece. And I think, obviously it was designed to be that way, but I loved this movie, like I absolutely loved it, and I will be watching it again.
I didn't love the movie. I have an admiration for it. Certainly. I think that it's impeccable. The production it's stunningly beautiful. I think, Rachel Weisz can have her way with me anytime.
Only when she's done at my house.
But she and all the leads are phenomenal. I think that I just have a hard time getting emotionally attached to a story in which everyone's relationships to each other are purely about, power games and manipulation. Like there's no real human connection in this film because everyone is viewing each other as opportunities, as things to be stepped on to achieve a higher level of standing. So it's all these like cold, calculated machinations. And I think that the film, I think the film knows that. Like, I think that, in the end, like the film is sort of aware that, there's like these people are kind of, because they've been so focused on these power games and everything, like they don't really have anything of substance in their lives. And also, like, what choice do they have? Emma Stone's character, she can spend her life as a scullery maid, or she can like try to maneuver her way up, and what are you going to do in that situation? Of course, you're going to try to achieve a better life for yourself. But I think it's just maybe a personal thing about me is that, I liked the film. I admired it. I enjoyed it, but it did leave me a little cold because I did see it all as just this one big power game. And I guess I wish that there had been a little bit more authentic humanity in it to kind of contrast with everyone's, cold, courtly machinations.
I 100% agree with you, Carol. Like that was exactly my reaction when I walked out of the theater. Because I also don't like TV show. Like there's a lot of shows that are heralded and films that are heralded as like magnificent. And I'm like, I need to like somebody. Like I can't dislike everybody and still like the material, right? And so the tension with The Favorite is that it is so well acted. It is so well costumed. It is the music, like it's such an incredible film.
Oh, it is.
But it was I had a really hard time being like, well, where is this going? Why is it going this way? What? Oh, this is happening now. Oh, I don't like you after all. And I had a hard time with that, even though I can appreciate appreciate the pieces of the movie that make it so wonderful. It felt very tense and it felt a little long to me. Like, I feel like some of the pacing, because of the tensions and the back and forth, felt a little bit like, okay, I think I'm done with this movie now, right? Like, when it ended, I was like, oh, good, it's over.
I didn't feel that it was overlong, perhaps because to me, it was a wonderful way to feel viscerally how wearing and taxing and exhausting it is to live in that kind of environment in which you must always be on guard. You must always, as you point out, Carolyn, you must always be maneuvering and kind of either solidifying your current position or angling for a higher one, because the minute you take your eye off the ball, you may be kicked down a rung or further. And so, yeah, like I felt that tension. But as the film grinded on and as the back and forth and the manipulation wore on, I started to feel that, that constant low level of fear and anxiety that, how will, Abigail be outmatched in this scene? And then how will she then, turn the situation around to her advantage? But in terms of likability, I'm so in love with films in which the women are unlikable, and all of the women are to some degree unlikable, and that happened at every level, right? So when Abigail is first introduced and given a job in the kitchens, and is bedding down in that oppressive small space with the other scullery maids, there's that battle even at that level between her and one of the other kitchen staff, right? Like, for no reason at all, this other woman has decided to torment, this new employee, this new servant.
Right, because I think there's a hierarchy even there, right?
Exactly.
And so that maid is trying to assert that she is above this new arrival by playing that kind of horrible trick on her.
Yeah, and I actually appreciated that, because I think so many films in which there's, a contrast between the upper classes and the serving classes below them, it's a very Titanic kind of move, right? So there's this insistence on there being this earthy, trueness, like salt of the earth, character to the people in the serving classes. And so I kind of love that this film is like, no, these people are also trash. Like, you're always just scrabbling for position and for the tiniest bit of power that you can. But at any rate, at the end of the film, despite the ways that she is maneuvered and manipulated, throughout the film by people who are much stronger than her, the fact that Olivia Colman is able to present a Queen Anne to us, who you can nevertheless tell that she's much sharper than she's being given credit for, that she is much smarter than she's being given credit for. And that the problem is not that she is insufficient unto herself, but that because of her position, because of her gender, because of profound tragedies she's experienced in her life, she is fighting so hard to survive, and assert what she wants and kind of claim her desires, in a system that wants to deny her any access to anything, that wants her to be simply a figurehead in that chair.
Yeah, and I do hope that, Olivia Colman is just fantastic. And we've talked before about her being, on Broadchurch. I really hope that this film is sort of a stepping stone to us seeing more of her in really meaty roles in films, right? Or more great television too. But I'd love to see her career, become bigger, I guess, because I just think that, she's just so great. And actually, I was reminded of our last week's film, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, at one point, a little bit. With she appears at one point with this, with very striking, bold kind of makeup on, so Rachel, not Rachel. Rachel Weisz's character is Sarah, right? Or Abigail.
Yeah.
Sarah. Okay, she tells the queen flat out, you look like a badger, right? And which, her makeup kind of reminded me of the very extreme kind of makeup that Bette Davis wears in Baby Jane. But I was also so struck by their relationship the way that Sarah was able to be like so blunt with the queen, like she understood that they had gotten to that point where she could say those things and the queen was not going to say, you know, well, off with your head, right? Or just because the queen could probably, it seems like the queen could, if she wanted to, in a fickle moment, you know, call for somebody's, you know, execution. I mean, I don't know what the limits of her power, if any, in that regard, but you know, it was very surprising to me to see characters not who had earned the queen's kind of confidence and trust be as open and with her as they were. I was just shocked.
I loved that. In relation to that, I was heartbroken and also loved the scene towards the closer to the end where Sarah is trying to talk to the queen through the door, right?
Yeah.
The queen won't let her in. And she's like, she ultimately is like, being honest with you is love. And like being direct and honest and not manipulating you and not, you know, which is insincere because Sarah does manipulate the queen for sure. But the piece of that, like in relation to the eye makeup and in relation to other matters, like I loved that. Like I loved that was, it felt like a very real moment in this film. And the fact that was still dismissed because the pain of, honesty was too much for the queen at that time, as opposed to like just unconditional like fawning.
Well, and also just, you know, Lady Sarah is insistently, relentlessly, you know, brutal with the queen when she feels that honesty is necessary, but she doesn't couple it with the tenderness and the gentleness that Abigail brings, right? And so if Lady Sarah had found a way to be brutally honest with the queen, but also recognize that there are moments when the queen does need to be cared for in a tender way, this film suggests this would not have happened. So, you know, there's that key scene where Lady Sarah first comes upon Abigail, you know, having a very tender emotional moment with the queen in the bunny menagerie in the queen's quarters. And she dismisses the importance of that because she's forgotten that it's not just, you know, kind of speaking truth to power that has gotten her position with the queen. She's made a very crucial tactical error there. And she's completely unaware until it's too late how important that is.
And we do see some actual humanity, you know, in her. I think there's a scene where she has letters that could, you know, incriminate the queen, right? Because they reveal that they've had a sexual relationship, these two women. And she threatens to release the letters and kind of destroy the queen. But after she does that, she does burn the letters. And it does seem to be motivated by actual kind of, you know, she doesn't have any reason to burn the letters other than like regret or that she had said those things, right? So, you know, like those are moments that kind of fascinate me, is where we do maybe see a little bit of like of people behaving according to like actual, you know, more genuine just human emotions of their own, rather than purely out of a desire to manipulate or, you know, others or position themselves with regard to others.
Yeah, to pull back a little bit, I was thinking about Ebony. You're like, I like seeing these women just be trash, right? Like we don't get to see that very often. And I was thinking about how this movie is about these three women. Like the men are very secondary and very ultimately unimportant unless they're pawns in the manipulation schemes for these women. And like there's something very nice about that for us, because you don't like, it's not often that you get these casts of women that are just, it's all women, unless it's like a movie that is created as like quote unquote a rom-com or like something that is targeting women in this sort of like, they're not usually these big award-winning Best Picture nominee dramas, right? And so I really liked just watching these women be the main focus endlessly. in totality. I think my issue is that with what you're saying, with what you're attracted to, Ebony, is that we still have, like, I would like to see much more range of women given roles like this, right? Where we can be just the fullness of human beings, whether it's utter trash or delightfully wonderful or anything in between. And so it's hard for me to see them all be kind of trash in one film, right? Because it still sets up this, like, in my mind, I could see people being like, yeah, well, women are manipulative. Or I could see men, sorry, let me be clear. I could see men being like, yeah, well, women are actually manipulative, right? In all of the ways that patriarchy tells us that women are that way. Like, it is our nature to be that way. And we're always going to deceive the men in our lives or whatever. And so I think that from a larger, like, patriarchy view, was that sat with me a little bit in this film.
I totally get that. I found what was interesting about the presentation of women strategizing and women's power in this film is that it actually, when you examine it, it actually is quite different from the way that that it traditionally has been represented. So I think there's traditionally, when we see women who have attained some level of power or access, and proximity to power, the assumption is that they've used their status as sexual objects to achieve that position, right? And to maintain that position. And so it's very interesting that, you can make the case that that's partially responsible for how Lady Sarah and Abigail achieve and maintain their closeness to the queen. But the fact that they are using that sexual power in service to another woman, I think, is notable. But also, the film does take pains to show us these conversations that Lady Sarah has with Godolphin, or the leader of the Whigs, and Lady Abigail has with her husband Masham, where the conversations that they are having, whether it's, with other people or talking to themselves, are very high level and very complicated and show, like, a profound astuteness, right? It's not just some sort of instinctive, I want this because it will make me more powerful, and it will ensure that I never have to, work as a prostitute down on the docks. It's that I have an idea for the preservation of the empire, or for the preservation of England, or I have an idea about how, this should be run. And they're actually quite intelligent, So I get what you're saying, but I do think this shows us, like, yeah, these women are absolutely manipulative. Like, that is their watchword, their byword, but it is, a more studied, a more complicated version of that than we had traditionally have been given.
Also, the men are manipulative too, which I think is another piece of it that smooths it out a little bit. I mean, not to dismiss what I was saying, but to corroborate your point, is like the men are also all manipulative in this space as well. For the most part.
They're ultimately subject to the decisions of the women around them, right? Like Godolphin and Marlborough, any of the men that we get in this, ultimately, if they want access to the queen, they have to go through these two women. And when it comes down to the decisions about the affairs of state, they are subject to the dictates of the queen. So no matter how powerful they are, there is always a woman who can, who sort of precedes them in power.
Yeah. Can we talk about the courtship between Abigail and the dude?
Yeah, boy.
So there are two scenes that I fucking loved that I just wanted to point out. So one, we didn't get a lot there. We don't know anything about him. He's purely just a pawn in this story. But there's a scene where he's clearly attracted to Abigail. He goes into her room and she's like, "Are you here to seduce me or to rape me?" And he says, "I'm a gentleman." And she goes, "So rape." And she lays limp. And I was like, oh my God, that was fucking genius. Like the whole way that played out was so pointed. Which it also throws back to at the very beginning when Abigail first shows up and she talks about how she got pushed out of the carriage by this guy who was like jerking off. And like the way it was, as soon as that they showed that clip and the way she talked about it and framed it, I was like, oh, I know, like I know this movie kind of, right? Like I know where they're going. Like there's these really smart moments in here that are they're not subtle at all, right? They're very bold, but they're also not the point, which I think is really interesting. And I like how smartly that was thrown in there as we're not going to sidestep over this shit. The other thing with their courtship is that weird, like when they're in the forest and they're they're literally like their sort of weird foreplay is fighting each other. Like he is like attacking her and she's fighting him off and pulling him in and fighting him off, and it's so uncomfortable. And you're like, does she want this or not want this? Like, what is happening? And it reminds me of the dance. Like it was like supposed to be in contrast to like the I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like the dance is this very formalized, everybody knows it, but it's a different kind of the same bullshit and like wacky and weird dance that you do as courtship.
Yeah, and ultimately the push me pull you that she does with Masham, doesn't end with her sort of surrendering to him, right? And like, okay, you finally bested me, in this love challenge.
But we also don't know. So she like manipulated her way into marrying him when he explicitly said he did not want that. But then we don't ever see whether he is okay with it or not. You just see that one scene where she's jerking him off and talking about how she needs to keep the upper hand, and it's so
well. I mean, but then he is pushed aside as soon as his utility to her is lessened, right? So we see that scene later when she has been made the queen's favorite, the first lady of the bedchamber, and she's at that drunken party, and she's flirtatiously like rubbing up on this other dude in full view of Masham, who just has to sit there and take it.
Yes.
I loved this movie, y'all. I don't know if that's been made clear. I loved this movie. It immediately made me want to go home and watch Amadeus because, for one thing, I love myself some Baroque music, and Baroque blending into classical music. But I loved it. I loved, and people have talked about the look of this film, and they've talked about the costuming and hair and makeup on this film, the monochrome black and white garb that everyone was wearing was luscious. It was absolutely luscious. The designs and the complexity and the very different ways people were dressed, even when the palette was simply black and white, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's a stunningly beautiful film, visually. Like I mean, the locations that they shot on, are authentic, obviously palaces and things, and what I especially loved about the physicality of the film is how much movement takes place through these kind of hidden tunnels in the palace. It seems, right, like these secret passages behind just like wooden panels that don't really look like doors. I found that like really interesting just in terms of the design of the space. But also
it's like it was so jarring because it would be pitch black.
Right.
And so you think it's nighttime and then you're like, no, this is just like a hidden alleyway.
Yeah, but I think it also. I mean, I think there's a sort of symbolic level on which it works too.
Yeah.
In that, so much of what's actually happening at court is this kind of, business in the shadows, or like that sort of thing. I also want to talk at least a little bit about the Queen's rabbits. So the Queen has 17 rabbits in her bedchamber. And she reveals at one point in this kind of tender moment of opening up to Abigail that the rabbits, each rabbit represents a child that she lost, or some of them she says were lost, like before. I guess some of them were miscarried. Some of them died. Were stillborn. Some of them maybe lived a few days and then died. And so then, like, in that room, in the Queen's room, this sorrow, these living symbols, really, of that grief are always there. And so the final scene, like the final shot, really focuses on the rabbits a lot, right? And I feel like so that final shot really stuck with me because it's Abigail and the Queen, and Abigail is kind of
rubbing the Queen's legs.
stimulating the Queen, right? But it feels at that point it feels very sort of again it feels very cold. It feels very just like routine. And so and we see again like all the rabbits around. So I guess it's just there's this weight of sorrow there and this feeling of like, oh yeah, like this is what all of Abigail's machinations have brought her to, is this kind of like empty transactional role in this life of this woman that is so dominated by like grief and loss and everything. I don't know. It was a really haunting ending for me.
Yeah, of all the things that I loved about this film, and again, I loved this film, I was that last shot stuck with me too, as the camera looks up at Queen Anne as she is diddled by Abigail, and then the mass of bunnies, sort of fade into the shot. I didn't want that to be the last scene, and I'm still wrestling with why I didn't want that to be the last scene. Part of it is because I wasn't sure what as much as I loved about it, I wasn't sure if I trusted what the film was doing with female sexuality in the film, and in particular, women loving women sexually, right? Because it seemed as if, I don't know, it was just one more thing that women can do to advance their cause, but it's never like there's nothing real behind it.
Yeah, the film doesn't exactly like present queer love in this like affirming light.
Yeah.
It's not that's not the story it's telling, right? It's not a story
Yeah, and so I guess I would have liked if there had been even just one scene where Abigail or Lady Sarah or a scullery maid, I don't care, had been shown like tenderly kissing another woman. And then if we got the ending that we did, I would feel as if the film was not suggesting that, like queer sexuality is itself, like a transactional kind of thing, always and forever, but simply like in this instance, it is. I don't know. I wrestled with that, and I'm still wrestling with that being the final scene. And also because I just loved Olivia Colman's character and characterization of Queen Anne so much that the final shot that we get of her, like shooting someone from below is never going to be a good look, from that close up. And I just wanted more dignity for her. And I don't know. Am I making any sense? Probably not.
Yeah, you are. I mean, that was a really rough. I was like, this scene needs to end. Like, it's going on fucking way too long. It was a lot. And like, the mimicry of this sort of that position is very much the subservient position that we see like stereotypically men do to women to like get blowjobs, right? And so like the hand on her head and like holding her down, and then like the grief of the bunnies interjected of like, oh, everything is bad. Like that's what I walked away from it with, was like everything is bad. Grief re-perpetuates. It never leaves. It's always here. No matter like who comes in, and the joy is always gone to some degree. It was a really intense ending.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I did not go into this film knowing anything about the House of Stuart, and I came out not knowing anything else. Yeah. You don't go to this film for a history lesson. It is wildly apocryphal, although I did learn that both Lady Sarah and Lady Abigail did exist. And I have been reading, and the general sort of shape of their stories that we see in this film is exactly what happened. Apparently part of a large part of the understanding, our modern understanding of Queen Anne as this like sickly, easily led, sort of grotesque, weak-willed woman is largely to do with Lady Sarah's memoirs, in which she painted this very unflattering portrait of Queen Anne. And so our modern understanding, until quite recently, has been colored by this. And that's people are saying, you know what, that's not actually accurate. You know, I mean, I have no love for the British Empire, but Queen Anne did reign during a period of huge expansion for the British Empire. She, you know, presided over and ruled over in England, a United Kingdom, what would become the United Kingdom, in which tremendous political changes were occurring. So she's ill-served by the portrait of her that we have gotten. And that portrait comes directly from Lady Sarah, you know? So after she was sort of banished from court and exiled, she took her final revenge.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
I did not know.
History.
History. All right, y'all. Let's move on to What's Your Freak Out? Carolyn, you want to get us started?
Sure. So in addition to The Favorite, I went to see another film this weekend, which is called Cold War. Cold War is it's a Polish film. It's directed by, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing this right, but it's the director's name is Paweł Pawlikowski, and this film is it's a black and white film. It's a very lean film. It's 89 minutes long, so it's very short for like a feature length live action film. And it takes place in from the early 1940s to the late 1950s, and it's basically a story about two Polish people, a man and a woman who meet through this Polish project to bring Polish folk music to the Polish masses, and then also to tour and to bring the music to neighboring nations. But they're also kind of oppressed in Poland, and so over the years and the few decades that follow, these two people, these lovers are repeatedly kind of torn apart and thrust back together and torn apart and thrust back together. And the film, I mean, a lot of it takes place in like these 50s Parisian nightclubs. And I mean, they're just so beautiful. I mean, the aesthetic of this film, first of all, you have two leads, who look like, I mean, they have the kind of classic beauty of like classic, Hollywood movie stars. They're just very strikingly attractive on screen. And that like paired with the environments that they're often in, these beautiful, smoky, neon lit kind of Parisian nightclubs. It's just aesthetically, it's a really beautiful film. But it's also, as a love story, it's kind of heart-wrenching, but there's also a lot going on here about politics and about music. In the mid-50s, rock and roll kind of emerges, and so there's this scene where they're at this club in Paris, and like a very well-known rock song starts playing, and the dancing is just so exuberant and so alive, but that these two people aren't really free. They're like having this moment of just exuberance and freedom as the music plays, but they're not really free. And anyway, it's a rich film. Again, it's about politics and music and national identity and love. And it's in beautiful black and white. It's called Cold War. I recommend it. It's very good.
Awesome. Ebony?
Okay, so we are recording this on Monday, Martin Luther King Day here in America. And so I just want to share some stuff that I'm revisiting today. And I want to encourage people to check out one or all of these things, because even though you won't be hearing this till Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever when you listen to it, that actually is kind of the point. Certainly, if you are an American, you would be forgiving for never thinking about Martin Luther King except on this this day in January. Except, of course, for when conservatives trot out his name and, try and convince us in very spurious ways that he would support their conservative policies, which is largely bullshit. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Mike Pence. Anyway, there is an amazing piece called The Whitewashing of the King assassination by this phenomenal writer named Van Newkirk. He's at 5/5 on Twitter. We'll put the links to all of these in the show description. It is an amazing incredibly rigorously argued piece about the ways that we misunderstand King's legacy and, you know, the way we have engaged in this willful blindness about what he meant during his time period, and also the ways in which resistance was heavily mobilized against him and has been sort of ossified in American culture. I want to also shout out the friend of the podcast, Jay Smooth, and his great video, 10 Other Things Martin Luther King Said, because too many of y'all just know a couple of lines from the I Have a Dream speech. And then the final thing is this great piece that Imani Gandhi, Angry Black Lady on Twitter, wrote called I don't know Martin Luther King's position on abortion, and neither do you, which is a response to those people who advance the notion that, you know, abortion is a so-called Black genocide and that Martin Luther King Jr. would be against it. So 3 wonderful pieces to celebrate the life and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. I encourage you, like I said, to check out one or all of the 3 that we'll be sharing.
Excellent. I completely forgot to plan a freak out, so I'm going to do what I said I was going to do last week. If you heard the bonus, sorry you're listening to this again, but I recently watched Pitch Perfect again, and it was one of those moments where I was with some friends and we're like, oh my God, let's watch something like, you know, like a sort of classic fun film that we all love, right? Because everyone loves Pitch Perfect. And it was made in 2012, which does not feel that long ago. But in the time, in like the internet time of 2012 to 2019.
That's an eternity.
So it's a massive amount of change. Like so this is the experience that I'm trying to articulate. The film has a lot of fucked up jokes, like a lot of cringy, like fat shaming, kind of homophobic, actually not kind of, very homophobic. Like there's a lot happening in that movie that I, even 4 years ago, was like, didn't really recognize or didn't think was a huge, I don't know. I watched it 4 years ago and did not feel this way. So whatever. And I was really, like, me and my friends were all really surprised at how uncomfortable it was to watch. And I couldn't help but think that that movie could not be as popular today if it came out today because of all of these elements in it. And so, one, that's disappointing and sad that this movie that, like, people still think very fondly of is actually really fucked up, even if it is enjoyable. For like the other fun, entertaining musical elements of it. But that, like, it's kind of cool how far we've come, right? Like, we still have a long way to go and things aren't great and whatever, but like the media landscape has changed so much in however many years that is, that like we have a lower threshold and tolerance for some of the bullshit in our media. And again, I'm not saying that we don't still get crap like fucking Green Book or whatever. Green Road, Green Book.
Yeah.
And we don't get, like, we have, you know, terrible comedy shows. We have all this stuff that's bad, but we have so much more other stuff than we ever had before. And we have so many more voices who have a platform that get to say that transphobic joke was fucked up, or why are you casting people that are not appropriate for the role, or like, why is this, you know, there are voices that get to talk about this stuff and get heard and get trending and get, like, put pressure on Hollywood to be fucking better, man. And I'm both like, oh God, I can't believe it. And also kind of like thrilled that we have been doing this work and there is some, yeah, that's it.
I mean, yeah.
That there's some action, like you can see the difference, right? Like in this short period of time, we can see a difference. So
right.
That's my freak out. We want to know what you're freaking out about. So please head over to feministfrequency.com/freakout and submit your own, and I might make it on the show. Yeah, we would like that. Please do that. I know I just said we'd like that, but we really, really would like that. So if I say it 3 more times, maybe it'll be real. I'm going to stop talking now because that's our show. You can catch us back here every single Wednesday, and be sure to stay tuned for the bonus episode, which is coming up right now. But but it's only available as a backer of this podcast, which you can very easily be by heading over to d.rip/femfreak. Just a quick announcement. Our Star Trek Discovery recap podcast is back, and it is a shit show, and you should absolutely come listen to it. You can find that we'll link it in the show notes, so please check it out. Let us know if you're listening. Let us know if you're watching that terrible show. It's going to be great. If you are enjoying this show, please rate and review us on iTunes. And when you're fingering your boss, you can tell them.
No, girl.
That's not in the job description.
Yeah.
I had to.
No,
I mean, it might be a
didn't.
job. It also might be totally inappropriate. Okay. I'm sorry. We couldn't have talked about this whole podcast without mentioning that.
Yeah, we could have. We easily could have. But it's too late now.
Anyways, tell your friends about us. Rate and review us on iTunes. All good things. No bad things, please. You can check out our work and our other podcasts at feministfrequency.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at FemFreak to stay up to date on all the news. I am reachable at Anita Sarkeesian on Twitter.
I'm at Carolyn Michelle.
I am at Don't Finger Your Boss.
You're such a prude, Ebony. Jeez.
I know. I'm going to start going to the same church as Chris Pratt.
Oh, ouch.
Call back.
Our producer is Phil Circus, who also composed our theme music. Technical support by Sarah Norales. Production assistance by Taylor Simmons and art by Jamie Varon. We'll see y'all next week.
Later.
Bye.